My next guest just spoke with President Trump last night about the objectives in Syria. Senator Lindsey Graham joins us. He is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And, Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you. Your reaction to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo?
One, it's a blessing to have him on the team. He's sort of the anchor tenant. General Milley is doing a great job. Ambassador Jeffries, who has the Syrian portfolio, is the best in the business. And, you know, we've got a really good team. The vice president did a terrific job. So let me tell you where I think we are. Withhold judgment as to what's going to happen in Syria until it's all in. I am increasingly optimistic that we can have some historic solutions in Syria that have eluded us for years if we play our cards right. I'll blame Erdogan for the invasion, not Trump. But here's what the president told me over the weekend. Here are our objectives. To make sure we have a demilitarized zone between Turkey and the Kurds. The Kurds were the allies who helped us defeat ISIS. They lost 10,000 soldiers. We've lost 8 in 4 years. God bless the 8. But it was the Kurds who did most of the fighting. Protect our NATO ally Turkey from elements of the Kurds that they consider to be terrorists. A demilitarized zone occupied by international forces, no Americans, but we provide air power. The president appreciates what the Kurds have done. He wants to make sure ISIS does not come back. I expect we will continue to partner with the Kurds in the eastern Syria to make sure ISIS does not reemerge. That is in our national security interest, and we owe it to the Kurds. The big thing for me is the oil fields. President Trump is thinking outside the box. I was so impressed with his thinking about the oil. Not only are we going to deny the oil fields falling into Iranian hands, I believe we're on the verge of a joint venture between us and the Syrian Democratic Forces who helped destroy ISIS and keep them destroyed to modernize the oil fields and make sure they get the revenue, not the Iranians, not Assad, and it can help pay for our small commitment in the future. And protecting Israel is the #1 objective. We can do all of that with a very small force.
Senator,
I'm increasingly optimistic this could turn out very well.
It could turn out very well. This is completely different than what you've been saying all week. You have been a staunch criticizer of the president's move to pull all the troops out of Syria. You said, in fact, on this program just 2 weeks ago, if we abandon the Kurds, ISIS is going to come back and that there's an attack on our allies. So you've changed your mind based on what you've heard from the president last night?
Yeah, I still believe that if we abandon the Kurds, nobody helps you in the future. They've lost 10,000 fighters to destroy the caliphate. But there are 15 or 20,000 ISIS fighters roaming around in Syria and Iraq. A small contingent of Americans providing air power and capability will keep ISIS at bay and keep the jails locked up, and the ISIS fighters won't break out. What I heard from the president was a very play the ball as you lie is a concept in golf. Well, after Erdogan's invasion, things have gotten scrambled in Syria, but I see a way forward now that really, quite frankly, is historic. Historic security for Turkey, historic security for the Kurds, a plan to keep ISIS down and out forever, and a chance to keep the oil fields in the hands of our allies, not our enemies, would be a hell of an outcome, and I think that's now possible.
Let me ask you, Senator, the president says that he wants the troops home. He doesn't want wars. The American people, much of them agree with him. Why are we sending troops to Saudi Arabia then?
Well, because Saudi Arabia is an ally and Iran's an enemy, and Iran's the biggest state sponsor of terrorism on the planet. They're trying to build a nuclear weapon. They're liars. They murdered their own people. They dismembered Lebanon and Yemen and on and on and on. They got American blood on their hand. They attacked the largest oil field in the world in Saudi Arabia. And it's in our interest to make sure that oil field is protected and the world's economy doesn't plunge because of misadventures of Iran. That's why what President Trump is proposing in Syria, a joint venture dealing with the southern oil fields in Syria between our allies, the Kurds and the Arabs who helped us destroy ISIS, is a historic change that could pay dividends for the region, and quite frankly, we could generate revenue to pay for our commitment in Syria, something we haven't been able to do. So the bottom line here is you got to play the ball where it lies, and if President Trump fulfills the objectives he laid out to me, then I think we can end Syria successfully. And God bless all those who have fought to destroy ISIS.
Wow. Well, that's breaking news this morning, Senator, that you actually do see a way forward after you've spoken with the president on his plan to secure those oil fields. Thank you for that. I want to switch gears real quick before you go, because we got news this week that the State Department concluded its investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's private email usage. They've determined nearly 40 people committed violations. Are you going to be bringing anybody down to question testimonies to find out what went on here? People would like accountability, and it seems like we never get any with the Clinton machine. Ditto for the IG report that's pending, and whether or not you're going to do a deep dive into the origins of the Russia probe.
Well, there's two questions there, and they're two good ones. In terms of the email report, that would have to go to the Foreign Relations Committee that has jurisdiction over the State Department. I would imagine that Chairman Risch would have a hearing about that. How did they abuse the rules? And I promise you, I keep saying this, as soon as Horowitz is done with his review of the FISA warrant application, the counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign, we'll have a hearing in public with Horowitz, and we'll call a bunch of witnesses. As to the corruption in the Ukraine, I want your listeners to understand that I think Ukraine was involved in the 2016 election. I think they were trying to hurt Trump. They may have been working with the Democrats. And I want somebody to look at Ukraine involvement in our 2016 election like Mueller looked at the Russian involvement. That has yet to be done, and it needs to be done.
You want a special counsel?
I've been calling one for a year, but if Durham is doing it, I'm okay. But I'm going to write a letter to Barr. I want him to tell me that, yes, we're looking at the allegations regarding Ukrainian interference in our 2016 election. Manafort, who was the president's campaign manager for a relatively short period of time, worked in the Ukraine, and I think people are out to get him. But the Politico article is very disturbing, where DNC members went to the Ukrainian embassy to find dirt.
Right.
So the bottom line, I hope we look at Ukrainian corruption, and I'd like to call the prosecutor into the United States and have him testify, the one that Biden had fired. Isn't it kind of odd that the only person that Biden wanted fired was the one investigating his son?
Senator Lindsey Graham. And Senator, a moment ago, you said that you want to question the former prosecutor of Ukraine. Just to be clear, this is the prosecutor that Joe Biden got fired.
Right. I want to know what happened. I want somebody to look at interference by Ukraine into the 2016 election like Mueller looked at Russia. I'm hoping that's being done. If it's not being done, it should be done. I'd like to do it outside of politics. And I find it odd that the only person that Biden wanted fired was the prosecutor. Maybe he is corrupt, but clearly he was looking at the boards that Hunter Biden was serving on. You know, if it'd been a Republican to pull this shenanigans, it'd be all over the news. So I'm not going to give up on the idea that both sides need to be looked at. Trump's been looked at. Now it's the Democrats' turn.
Yeah, I mean, as we peel the onion back on the origins of the Russia probe, we are learning more and more, and we will continue to focus on this. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.